The Startup Retro is a new podcast from the team behind Overnight Success.
A weekly show where we help you level up on the Australian startup ecosystem by giving you an insider's view on Aussie startups and venture capital. I'm Will Richards.
And I'm Gemma Clancy.
At OS, we curate the most important news and announcements across the ecosystem and explain a bit of useful context behind them.
The Startup Retro podcast will follow a format familiar to our readers of the weekly newsletter, but offer an opportunity for much more discussion.
So, if you want to keep your finger on the pulse of all things happening Aussie startups and venture capital, start your week by listening to the Startup Retro. New episodes every Monday, starting the 1st of July.
The Startup Retro is brought to you by Day One, the podcast network for founders, operators, and investors.
Welcome to FinTech Fun. FinTech Fun is a podcast where Australian fintechs come to share their stories. Hi, it's Chris Titley here. As part of the FinTech Fun podcast series, I'm joined by Christian Eckelmann, co-founder and CEO of Upstreet, in studio here in a beautiful September afternoon in Brisbane. Welcome, Christian.
Thanks, Chris, for having me.
Christian, you've travelled down from the sunny coast. Last time we caught up, you were living in Sydney. What's going on?
Well, we decided we need a bigger apartment, and we have 2 little kids. And I think it was like this one moment in November last year where my 4-year-old son was running around the table like a maniac. We could not go outside, like sun. Either it was raining or too much sun. And I said, okay, we need a bigger apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment in Bondi, and we started looking and we couldn't find anything.
Nothing local.
Nothing we can afford, to
Yep.
be honest. And then the rest is like, sorry for my French, is kind of borderline shit.
Yeah.
And then we had a vacation planned to Noosa for Christmas, and then we just by chance looked up realestate.com and figured out, hey, for the same cost of a 2-bedroom apartment, we get a 5-bedroom house with pool in Noosa. And
the arbitrage between Bondi and Noosa.
Yeah, exactly. And then the question is, hey, we are actually running our own business as a fintech, completely remote, as a tech startup. So if we can't do it now, then we never can do it. So we basically said, let's move. Like within 6 weeks, we found something. We moved the whole family up to the sunny coast.
And how did that go with the kids? Were they sort of settled in their respective kindies and schools and friend network, but young enough to kind of adapt?
Yeah, one is 14 months, the other one is 4.5.
Well, the 14 months wouldn't have had a problem.
Yeah, he has no problem. He loves it because we have no outside space and grass, and we can walk and no stairs and nothing. And the other one, he loves it. I think my first time I dropped him off at the kindergarten, I was like, wow, this is a really cool kindergarten. And then they had a mud kitchen, where they can get really dirty.
Yep.
And then all these teachers came to me and asked me questions and were so friendly. And I said, what do you want from me? I don't have money. Like this transaction in Sydney, they actually cared in the sunny coast. They really cared. They were friendly. And I thought, wow, that's really.
Is there a catch to this?
What is the catch? So no, they were actually interested in myself, and they were interested in my son, and they were actually happy to have them. Yeah, they are not like, send your money, don't send your kid.
Did they sign up to get some shares in their own company at the same time, a loyalty bonus?
Still on it.
Still working on it. Right.
Private company,
we have digressed early in the podcast, but we've digressed for a reason, and that's that you're now in Noosa and you're now in person in Brisbane, which is great. Last time we caught up in a pub in Sydney a year or so ago, or maybe even before that, I can't even remember. But Upstreet, in its own right, came out of Antler, I recall, under a different name. Tell us a story on how it's going.
Yeah, so we were the first cohort, or members of the first cohort with Antler, mid-2019.
Under a different name, I recall.
Yeah, we came out as Hello Money.
Hello Money.
Hello Money,
Yep.
which really nothing
Was it
to
spelled
do.
funny? Or was it normal?
No.
It was a normal hello.
Hello, and then No, Halo.
Oh, Halo money.
and
It wasn't.
money.
Yep, wasn't a
But-
silent X or anything.
Yeah,
No.
but it really money shares. It's money. But shares it really doesn't ring the bell that easily.
Yep.
And then we still run with it, but then basically figured out we cannot get any trademarks in Australia with like 7-8 conflicts.
on the Halo.
On Halo.
Oh, really?
Halo is finance. It's like there's a bunch of
Was
companies
there?
out there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so we decided we need a new name. And
Yep.
then I had the idea with Upstreet, but I basically spent every night for like 3-4 weeks, like an hour looking for names. And then
How did you go about that process in regard? Like, did you put yourself, put some headphones on and sit in silence, or did you go for a swim and go upside down underwater? All these people that think about being so creative, did you just keep like just Googling stuff and trademarks and domain names and?
exactly. So there's like a couple of criteria. Is the name positive or negative connotated? So is it like we had like a
Street though? Street's a neutral.
Street is neutral. Up is positive.
Yep.
So it's pretty good.
Yep.
And then you look, is someone else doing something with Upstreet, or is it somewhere?
Is it a fashion brand
It's
in
a fashion brand. Yeah. So you look.
Copenhagen?
Yeah, you look for who is taking space in this domain, and there's almost no one in that one for Upstreet. There's no trademarks at all. So we got all the trademarks in Australia, in US, in Europe. So, and then a domain name. And domain name was taken, upstreet.com.
Well, it's pretty generic. That's
It's
why.
pretty
Yeah.
generic, but it was not used. So we got the upstreet.co
Yep. Without the M.
without the M, but I bought the com.
Oh, you've
last
got
year.
it tucked away, do you?
Yeah, I got it. We're doing the whole website, and then we're launching on
Interesting.
upstreet.com.
That's
So
a good domain name.
Yeah, it was a bit of a hassle. It belonged to a billion-dollar business in Switzerland. And
Did you have to go through the bureaucratic channels of?
It was first getting in contact with them was pretty hard. So I emailed them, and nobody responded. Like the dude in douchebag in Australia.
Yeah,
or something.
info at
Yeah, whatever. And
info at telstra.com.
then I actually engaged a lawyer in Germany, like an IP lawyer in Germany, to do that deal. So they ringed them up basically, and I tried also to ring them up, but with Australian phone number, I didn't pick up. It didn't take me seriously. So my German lawyer got in contact, and we started negotiating. Then walked away. We walked away. It took like 3, 4, 5 months to get to an outcome. It was expensive, but I think long term, it's
It's a great name for a .com. It's very generic and 7 letters. I can't remember what comes on my head, but anyway.
Honestly, in Australia, it doesn't matter. Upstreet.co or
No.
you have a spelling mistake in your name, or you have the .co, whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah? But if you want to bring that business internationally, I think that .com is very valuable, and that's why we bought it, because I want to bring Upstreet to the world, not just
to the
Australia.
world. And speaking of that, the business in my impression was to do with the loyalty and rewards, but in a different way, in a twist whereby you might receive equity or partial equity or shares in a business for being doing behaviours. Is that the premise of the business at the moment, and what's been going on, what's been happening?
Yeah, so we started basically you transact with the business, you get shares in the business,
Yep.
you get an ownership stake, and we think it's working fantastically. We see 24 to 36% revenue increase of people who get shares. They are more loyal.
Yep.
Still, the whole shopping, the whole retail space is very dense, very competitive. So it's hard for us to scale. And but we found another niche where we actually do the same thing just for employees. So employee loyalty with
So like an employee of a large-scale organisation, for instance, let's call it a Big Four bank.
yes.
I work at a Big Four bank, but I don't have any shares in the business unless I'm probably at a level of executive, or maybe I'm not. Maybe everyone gets something every year, but you want to help build that.
Yes. So what we built basically is now a micro-investing platform or micro-investing rewards platform. And a company can give, instead of a $50 gift card, they might give today on your birthday to you, hey, here, $50 in a gift card. You can now give $50 in your own shares to your employee. Anniversaries, referral bonuses, you refer a friend to become an employee. Companies pay now between $5,000 and $10,000.
Like a finder's fee.
Finder's fee, you give cash. So just shift that in your own shares. We're doing awards, like awards dollars you're giving to your people or on Christmas or on any live event, we call it. And then there's other things we just recently started to do is like a sign-on bonus. Like one of our clients do now $1,000 distributed over 24 months. So imagine every completed month you get $50 in the business. So thank you for being here. Another month's turn.
Question on that. Why do you think employers haven't thought about really kind of funky ways of retaining staff? I mean, it's front of mind now in 2022, post during a global pandemic where you want to retain your staff as much as you can, particularly as there's been some disconnect from the office and other things. But like, you know, what other methods do employers use to retain their staff apart from money? Are you involved in that and looking at the psychology of that and obviously the retention levels, if you have equity in the business, are much higher and the churn's lower than on a tangible basis. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, for instance.
Yeah. So I call it like the emotional value of shares. So like here, a little war story. In one of our clients, listed ASX company, in January they had an annual report. So we had a blackout. So we couldn't give anyone shares because of the annual reporting season, because of insider information. And one person's birthday was on a Sunday. And on Monday morning at 9 a.m., the first thing she did is calling us saying, hey, my birthday was yesterday. Where are my $25 in shares? Why do you call us for $25? I was deeply sorry we cannot do it because of the blackout thing. But she called us because there's an emotional value. Everybody got it. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Where are my $25 in shares? Yeah. So this is like this.
So my kids do that at home right now. The three of them, like, what did you get in ice cream?
Yeah. Why did you get it? And I didn't get it.
I didn't get to go to the footy.
And we see that now with our client. They have like 90% of their employees have now shares with Upstreet in the company. Where they tried it on IPO with a normal HIN number and everything, only 50% of the employee took it, free money. Why is that? Because it's too complicated. It takes too much time.
The account forms, the KY. I mean, you have to do that as well, I'd imagine. But also, like the idea of potentially selling $1,200 worth of shares doesn't sound ideal to anyone, really.
Yeah, and we're giving more value. So we still have our shopping reward, so you can shop somewhere else. You have the gift cards, and soon we have our invest product where you can invest in shares.
So the business in its own right, B2C to start, and has sort of morphed into B2B, B2C.
Yes. It's like,
so people know of Upstreet because they work for an organisation and they get shares in that organisation, so they know of you. They're going to account with you, but your customer really is the business.
It's the business, yeah.
And how do you then make some noise to companies around? And obviously, from a scale point of view, you want to be in with growing companies and companies that have ultimately grow their headcount to be big and big, or just go big straight away. How are you saying hello to them and saying, this is what we're doing?
Through investors, network, cold outreach, cold calls. We are now in negotiations with the big four consulting companies because they do enumeration perks programs to work with them to do a distribution play. And then we try to get to the CEOs and CXOs with our shopping product, and many conversations, but they didn't lead to conversion. But now we're going back to them and saying, hey, we have also this employee. Do you have an employee problem at the moment, retention? And they say, yeah, I do. And here's a program. And I said, this is fantastic. Let's chat. So we're going back to all our old leads and getting sort of conversations, proposals, and hopefully to conversions.
On the education side of that, if you're a worker in a business and you are offered shares in the business, I don't know. I'm just thinking like the separation from how the business is going to you as an employee might be a problem. Like, I don't know how the business is going. I'm just getting paid. I'm just doing my job. But maybe the share price is halved, or maybe it's gone through the roof. I don't really know. I mean, is there some sort of education piece around that to employees to say, well, actually we're going pretty well and your shares are going up.
Yeah, so they see it on the app.
Yeah.
This is like Upstreet. You can see your share, the
Oh,
holding
yep.
on the app every day. That's
Yep.
the difference to
Yeah.
normal ESS program. Yeah, normal ESS programs is once a year. Or
You get a
when
piece of
join,
paperwork
You get a
and-
piece of paper. You sign it. You have no idea how is it actually going.
Yep.
Here you have all your shares in your pocket. You can look at it. It goes up and down. You see it in the app. You get notifications. We are even going to some events with our clients where we do we call it Genius Bar. We stole that word, of course, from Steve. But we help them people to onboard and answer all these questions. So we had this workshop event of the client.
The real life FAQ.
Yeah, exactly. And they loved it. Yeah. And that's where we are. 90% of people have now shares. And so it's a bit more, I was a Boy Scout, so learning by doing. Let's make it as simple as possible. You get an invite email. Hey, we have some shares for you. Here, download the app. You can do it on the mobile phone. You can
I
do
was
it
just
on
trying
your computer.
before we went on air. We were just having a look at all the different options. There's so many different options you can buy from not just Australian shares too.
Yes. Also.
And on that point, in terms of a private company, hard to buy shares in a private company, I'd imagine, but there's other alternatives to
Yes.
buy shares on ETFs and
Yes. So
and
we just signed a private company. And what they will do, they will give FANG ETF, like
Yep.
a technology ETF to their people, because they're a technology company. And they also will do, they sell software licenses, AWS licenses, and then they will give the commissions in Amazon shares.
oh, right. Okay, so there's a little bit more incentive on perks within organisations
Correct.
as opposed to gift cards. And so you're thinking that potentially, the idea, I mean, you've given me some look like to trial out this gift card here. Gift cards and loyalty are still a thing. They're very prominent. It's just being digitised a bit and different variations. But I'd imagine there's not too many people out in Australia that are doing what you're doing when it comes to shares.
Yeah, I think there are one or two. Yeah, one
Yep.
of them.
And what about globally then?
I think there's one big one in the US.
Yep.
As usual, US is always the forerunner here.
Yep.
Who does this kind of product, but otherwise I haven't seen anything in Europe or Southeast Asia. And it's a nice product. It's a gift card. We can dedicate it to one share to redeem
Yep.
only. A dedicated card for our clients, and they love it because they do the employee program, but then they come to us and one of our clients, I have an event. Can you do 200 of these gift cards? I tried it the other day.
Yep.
Oh, that's great. I want 200. So we produce this physical gift card, we hand it over, and they distribute it. Yeah? So it's like a normal gift card, just with shares.
What about employees of Upstreet?
Yes, we are actually starting to do our own employee share rewards program in Upstreet and giving them an ETF.
Would that be like a tricky exercise when it comes to like a constitution or something, or you have to try and amend something that...
So we cannot give our own shares right now. So
okay.
we can't give private shares. I'm working on that.
Interesting if you could in the future.
Yeah,
Wouldn't that be good?
I'm working on it.
Or maybe some... I don't know, you can do it options. Options will be a little bit tricky, I'd imagine, but... Yeah, interesting. Now, Christian, when you're not talking about shares and loyalty and gift cards and everything that Upstreet has and what you're doing on cold calling, what do you do to wind down, mate? Noosa must be a nice place to wind down.
Yeah, I go for a hike in the national park. That's what I did on my birthday.
Yeah,
My
by
wife-
yourself?
By myself. I was
Music
asked-
on or just no music on?
Podcast, music on.
What's your podcast choice?
Acquire-
FinTech Fund, it's a good one. Yeah.
Yes, of course, FinTech Fund. Second is
snorted
Acquired.
there. Acquired. Oh, yeah, yes.
Acquired
Yep.
from,
Very popular.
Yeah, and then Not Boring.
Yep.
Not
No, I'm not
boring.
boring. No, sorry. Bad joke, dad joke. Yep. No, not boring is a good one. Yep.
Not Boring.
Yep.
Yeah, listen to podcasts, walking in the national park, running if I can. But I actually have two kids, you know how it is with two,
Yeah.
4.5-year-old and 14 months, so pretty busy.
Do you indulge in any of that Noosa Tri stuff? That every year there's thousands of people come along to the Noosa Triathlon and run around, and
I would love to do the triathlon, but
Just,
the
time
swimming,
is-
swimming is not
not your thing.
my thing now.
You have a slight Australian twang, but not a full Australian twang. Let's talk about your past and where you came from and what your sports are. Then, if you're not a swimmer.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Germany, I think probably everybody has guessed it so far. I come from a small town in the south of Germany, 7,000 inhabitants. I think founded by the Romans, like 50 BC or something like crazy.
Wow.
And really old city with a castle and stuff. And grew up there, went to high school there. I think significant is I was a Boy Scout for 10 years. I played almost professional handball. That was my sport.
Handball, not the handball that kids play at in Australian schoolyards, but my son plays, and lines and replay and everything. This is Olympic handball.
That's Olympic handball, European style.
So it's like water polo on, not in the water.
Not in the water, but similar brutal. Right?
Yeah.
And I was specialized on defense. So
So you copped a few blows.
Yeah, so basically on 20 games I get probably 19 red cards. And
Have you been suspended yet?
Yeah, you basically are suspended. You get these suspensions of 2 minutes, and you get 3 times 2 minutes. You get the red card.
Good, mate.
So I did a good job.
Is that because you just give the odd elbow, or do you think you just sort of back chat to the ref a little bit? Or?
I'm basically I was in the defense, and I was basically saying, "You do this, you do this." So you're orchestrating it, and I was basically set on the best offense player, and then I do a good job if I basically win the game with blocking him.
Take him out early.
Take him out.
Oh,
and I get a red card at the 59th minute, with 2 goals in front, and I do a good job.
Right.
So it's European.
Do you
handball.
miss playing handball?
Now I'm 40 years old. No, I don't. It's a very brutal.
Right.
It's like,
I'm 41, so I don't. Yeah, you don't pretend to be what you used to be. Otherwise, you will have a right hamstring tear or a adductor, which I did playing indoor cricket recently, thinking that I was.
Yeah, I think
Steve
my doctor said at 16 years old, hey, your ankle is like a 60-year-old. Stop doing whatever you're doing. And it's like, I can't. But yeah, and the third thing I actually did when I was like a teenager, 16, 17, I had my first company. It was wine.com.
Wine,
like a German wine.com.
Oh, right. Yes.
The domain. And we sold like direct from producer to end customer, direct to consumer player, like build a platform.
Some Riesling.
Riesling, red wine,
Does it Gewürztraminer? No.
Yeah, Gewürztraminer, yeah, all this stuff. So we had like 8, 9.
That's all I know in German.
8, 9 vineyards on the platform, and we coded it in JavaScript. There was no Shopify back then.
I'm just putting my thinking caps on. That would have been early 2000s, maybe even late
1998.
Yeah,
1998, 1999, and then .NET bubble. We did next to school and university, and learned a lot, but was not super successful, sold the business. That was my first entrepreneurial stint, and went to university, went then to Audi, did my university together with Audi, like the car manufacturer, so half year in a factory building cars and half year in university, worked for Audi for almost 9 years, I think, and did my second degree, my MBA with Audi, and got hired out of that for McKinsey. So changed track from being in corporate consulting
to management consultant.
Yes, was a steep learning.
What about the skiing, mate? Did you ever get into that as a kid?
In what?
The slopes, skiing.
Yeah, not really. I started actually when I was almost 20 years old. And I
right. That's a bit, I wouldn't say an anomaly, I would imagine. The kids in Europe grow up in the skis and instead of the pool.
My parents didn't like it.
Yeah.
My parents didn't like it. They never skied. So, but now
what
I
about,
want my nice kids.
Football.
I played handball.
Yeah.
Handball is for the smart kids.
Hand or foot. Choose your ball. Yeah.
Is for the not so smart
And when
kids.
you come to Australia, do you barrack for Germany in any particular sport still?
Yeah, soccer.
Yeah. And what about the state of origin?
Well, I watch it, drink my beer to it. Not that I understand it.
Live in Queensland, originally from Germany, but also lived in Bondi.
Yes.
You can be neutral.
I try to, but
It's
hard.
When people go, who are you going for? Oh, I don't know.
What's on?
Yeah.
What are the
what's
rules?
on? Yeah, that's right. It's a good answer. Christian, one final question about going forward, maybe 6 to 12 months. Where do you want to see the Upstreet business? Obviously, more corporates take you up on what you're doing. Any plans in the pipeline?
Yeah, more corporates take us up, raising a Series A,
Yep.
having this product market fit moment to really really drive the growth and attraction in Australia, and then setting foot in the first overseas country.
Oh, right. The global ambitions, hey?
Global
Which
ambition.
I'd imagine because you've got a fully remote workforce and your shares are global and the platform is built with the .com as well, which you mentioned before, but the infrastructure's been built for it to be scalable on a global basis. However, I'd imagine there are some intricacies when it comes to SEC and what's the regulator in the UK? I can't even remember. That you'll have to navigate through some compliance.
So there's always like this setup phase in every new country where you say, how is that product possible? How would we structure it? Can we do the same structures in Australia? Does it make sense? So you need to work through all these questions. But hey, we have built in Australia, which is probably the hardest retail market in the world from a regulation point of view. So could be easier. Well, maybe I'm a bit naive here, but will be interesting to see how we can scale up.
Okay, I've got one final question. I just thought of it then. The idea of shares and equity and ownership in a business is part of education. It's part of learning finance. Some people may not know the value or may not know the benefits of potentially owning shares that work in large companies. How do you go about changing that, or at least kind of building the foundations to say that that's good?
Yeah.
If it goes well, you're actually going to make money. And they go, well, how does that work?
So first of all, it's like we try to do this Boy Scout thing, learning by doing.
Yep.
So we give you shares, but we don't tell you we give you 0. whatever shares or a fraction. We give you $50 of shares.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And so that's how we communicate in the app, and you can.
So
see
the dollar value triggers the brain to go, oh, that's good. I think.
So I think you redeemed it to Amazon. So you will see
Amazon,
and you see $25, and then we will calculate what fraction is that. It's probably 0.0 whatever, and then we also tell you it's a ticker is Amazon. So
I'm just videoing this gift card, so I might put it on the podcast and see.
So you basically see there's a dollar value, and everybody understands, or I think everybody understands a dollar value. And then it is invested in Amazon shares, and that is how many shares it are. So it's pretty simple to understand. And then it may go up, it may go down with the share price. And you see it's more or less value, and then you can decide to sell it, take the money, do whatever you want with it. And then we also want to do more in education, and I don't know, maybe do a podcast or videos.
Yeah,
or
let's do that.
Do more.
I've got another question. I'm just firing with the questions here. You know the old shareholder loyalty? Back in the day, the old Coles Myer card. I remember a lot of clients used to have that in my early days in broking. It doesn't seem to be too prevalent around the place anymore. Why is that, and is this kind of the modern day or not? So
we looked into it, and when we see Coles Myer, I think they were too successful. They started, I think Westfarm
it's
started.
Just like, at the counter, everyone was like, oh, I got my card.
Yeah, but
here's my card. They're like 10% off. How good?
Like Chris, they started with 60,000 shareholders. At the end, they had 700,000. They had 700,000 people on the cap table. You need to invite them to the AGM. You need to send them a visit. Back in the days, you sent them
donuts and your cup of tea.
But you need to send a mail. That's a big expense. Is that the reason why they canned it? I don't know. Maybe the program was too difficult to do or too expensive. But we could actually do this kind of program. We're a custodial fund, so the company only gets one shareholder.
I reckon
not these 10,000.
Domino's would work pretty well on me. I'm a bit of a super user there, and I'd just love a good discount if I was a shareholder, for instance.
Yeah.
Just using that as an example, of course. But even to the point of like choosing between two players, Coles, Woolies, and NAB and CBA or something, and it's like, well, I'm loyal because I've got shares in, and/or maybe loyalty programs have kind of overtaken that, because if I'm at a Dares, I get Lynn Loves or Rebel Sport card or something. But it's sort of like you hear it every now and then. You're like, oh, do they still have that shareholder discount thing? And people sort of mention it every now and then. You're like, oh, what happened to those things? And how disappeared?
Yeah, they completely disappeared. I think too expensive, too hard to run. But how many loyalty programs are you a member of?
I reckon 6 to 12.
What do you do with your points?
I have no idea.
That's the point. right? So there's ineffective.
But I kind of
Everybody
like
else-
signed up at the spot because they gave you 10% off at the time or something. You're like, oh, that sounds good. Definitely Rebel Sport, I know of.
Yeah.
I've definitely got Flybys, but I don't really use it that often. What's the other one? Woolworths Rewards?
Qantas, most likely.
Oh, Qantas and Virgin, both airlines I've got points on. Qantas is a fascinating story, isn't it? Like if you were to think about Coles Myer,
Yeah.
and then you got Qantas Frequent Flyers, like two behemoth programs that have reinvented the company in its own right.
But I would love to bring the shareholder discount back, and we build basically the infrastructure to say, okay, you can earn share rewards if you transact with the company, but then there is this tier 1 or platinum, whatever what you want to call it, but you can't get with your spending to it. You can basically buy $10,000 worth of shares, and then you get 5% discount every time you shop there, or get 5% more in shares. That's something we can facilitate.
I actually don't know why more companies don't do the reverse loyalty. Like if you've shopped with us for 5 years or 1 year, here's 1% off or whatever it might be. Because I feel like they don't do that. But they do it through their loyalty programs and they track your data and whatever. And I might be wrong. But, you've seen some mortgage companies do it. The more you pay off, the less interest you get.
Maybe that's...
As in, like, they encourage you to pay off your home loan faster. I think Athena was one of the first ones to do that, where they said, your interest rate declines over the time of your loan as you pay off more. I don't know what they're doing in this sort of wild RBA environment, but interesting. Lots of things to talk about, Christian. Congratulations on what you've achieved at Upstreet thus far, and sounds like a big, bright future in the B2B, B2C play that you're now focusing on. Wish you all the best and look forward to catching up.
Thanks, Chris.
For more information on Sub11, jump onto our LinkedIn or email me, chris@sub11.com.au. Thanks for listening.
The Startup Retro is a new podcast from the team behind Overnight Success.
A weekly show where we help you level up on the Australian startup ecosystem by giving you an insider's view on Aussie startups and venture capital. I'm Will Richards.
And I'm Gemma Clancy.
At OS, we curate the most important news and announcements across the ecosystem and explain a bit of useful context behind them.
The Startup Retro podcast will follow a format familiar to our readers of the weekly newsletter, but offer an opportunity for much more discussion.
So, if you want to keep your finger on the pulse of all things happening Aussie startups and venture capital, start your week by listening to the Startup Retro. New episodes every Monday, starting the 1st of July.
The Startup Retro is brought to you by Day One, the podcast network for founders, operators, and investors.